Sure, the Seychelles are idyllic, but how do you plan your Seychelles trip? Where even are the Seychelles? I'm Juliana from the Discoveries of, and this step-by-step Seychelles travel guide is going to cover all you need to know to plan a trip to this gorgeous island archipelago. Personally, I've had 2 magical trips in the Seychelles and I want to help you do the same. This guide covers every aspect of travelling to the Seychelles, the best time to visit, when to get there, what to do when you do, suggested stays and itinerary, as well as a hell of a lot of practical tips you need to know before you go. So let's kick off with top tips for your Seychelles trip. So first off, you're going to want to know when is the best time to visit the Seychelles. Visiting the Seychelles is best from April to May and October to November, as it sits between the 2 trade wind seasons. The northwest trade wind runs between November and March and brings a wet season, while the southeast wind from May to September brings rough seas. That said, I've actually visited both in January and July, and while the weather wasn't perfect, on balance we had far more sunny days than rainy ones, so don't expect a non-stop deluge if you do. Travel in the lower seasons, plus it's far cheaper too. You'll also want to know where to stay in the Seychelles. Mahe is the biggest island in the Seychelles and almost certainly where you'll start your trip, as it's where the international airport is located. Don't think that because Mahe is the biggest island that it doesn't have plenty to offer though. It boasts more than its fair share of gorgeous beaches and high-end hotels, as it's such a worthy contender for you to base yourself during your trip. If you mainly want to base yourself on one island and see a variety of what the Seychelles have to offer, then you can also look at Pralin or Ladigue, 2 of the more popular islands in the archipelago. Pralin in particular is a good option if you want to take day trips to some of the smaller islands like Curious, Grand Sur and Arid, as there are a few operators offering tours for you to do so. If, however, you're after the ultimate paradise escape, I cannot recommend booking at the Four Seasons Des Roches enough. It's located on a private island, 35-minute flight from Mahe, and it is the closest thing you can get to getting away from it all. That said, it is very expensive. If you have more than a week to play with, my suggestion is to plan a stay on a couple of different islands. There are some suggested itineraries later on in this guide. Okay, and what about packing for your Seychelles trip? Lightweight, layered clothing is key when you're packing for the Seychelles. Pack some comfy sandals, hats and sunglasses to protect yourself from the sun. Don't forget your swimsuit either, lots of them. So in this part of the Seychelles travel guide, we're now going to cover the top things to do in Seychelles. I'm going to do a whole separate video on my favourite things to do in the Seychelles, but for now, let's breeze through my top tips. It'll be a surprise to absolutely no one that one of the top things to do in the Seychelles is to laze on the beautiful beaches. Let's not lie, it's kind of one of the main reasons you're going, right? With their crystal clear waters and rock-framed white sand beaches, Anse Lazio on Pralin Island and Anse Source d'Argent on Ladigue are often called some of the world's most beautiful beaches, and you can really see why. You should also go island hopping between the islands. Island hopping in the Seychelles is an unforgettable experience, whether you explore by boat or kayak or hop on a flight or 2, the diverse and stunning scenery will amaze you. I spent some of my most recent trip to the Seychelles on a Ponant cruise, as it enabled me to visit quite a few of the islands, including some pretty out-of-the-way ones like Ramir. Alternatively, if you have the resources, you can always charter a yacht or a catamaran. You should also enjoy the capital city of the Seychelles, Victoria. The capital city is located on the main island of Mahe. Victoria is a charming city with brightly coloured buildings, shady parks and fascinating historical sites. You can even see a tiny replica of Big Ben too. Meet a few giant tortoises. The Seychelles giant tortoise is a species of giant tortoise native to the islands. These gentle giants can live for up to 150 years, making them some of the longest lived vertebrates on Earth. You can find the ALDABRA tortoises on many of the islands, but Curious is a particularly good spot as there's a tortoise sanctuary where you can see loads of these gentle giants. Snorkel in the crystal clear waters. What really makes snorkeling in the Seychelles unique is its diverse range of underwater attractions, from caves and walls full of vibrant corals to deeper shipwrecks on the seafloor. There is something for everyone to explore, even bonus points if you're a diver too, because there is spectacular diving. Top spots for snorkeling include Grand Sur West, which is spectacular. Explore the national parks. The Seychelles is home to some of the most beautiful and pristine national parks in the world. 2 main parks are the Vallée de Mai Nature Park, National Park on Pralin Island, and the Morne Seychellois National Park on Mahe. You should also spend a day on Mahe at least. The largest Seychelles island is the most populated as well in the archipelago, and it's known for its white sand beaches, crystal clear waters, and lush tropical forests. There are waterfalls, there are great restaurants. It's really cool. You should also pop into the Takamaka rum distillery, where you get a tour of the facilities and then you get to taste all the rums, and learn all about the rum making in the Seychelles and how the locally sourced ingredients create original recipes. So I said we were going to run through a couple of suggested itineraries, and that's what we're going to do now. So first up, the essential itinerary. You can see all the main destinations in Seychelles with this itinerary, although you won't find that many hidden gems. Now, I do recommend spreading this over a 2-week trip to save you from mushing around. First, you're going to kick off with Mahe and take a day trip to Moyen, move to Pralin, take a day trip to Curious, and then move to Ladigue and back to Mahe. Now, on this one, if you want to explore the path less taken, you've got a little more time to spare. You can explore secluded beaches and hidden natural beauties. So you kick off in Mahe, go over to Ladigue, Pralin, take a day trip to Curious, take a day trip to Arid, and then go back to Mahe, where you can fly over to one of the outer Seychelles like Ramir or Des Roches, to spend a couple of days there. And I have to be honest, the inner Seychelles is stunning, and that's actually where the majority of the tourists go. But if you make it to the outer Seychelles, that is really where you're going to see just completely secluded beaches and resorts. That said, getting there is quite expensive, and you normally have to stay at a resort, so it's a lot pricier. Okay, and moving on, I'm going to cover things to know before you go, the tips for traveling to Seychelles that are going to make your trip so much easier. First is getting your immigration form processed early. You need to do this within 72 hours of your flight, but the earlier you get it done, the better. It costs €10 per person, and you can find the requirements on the official website. Know your currency. The official currency in Seychelles is the Seychelles rupee, the SCR. You can exchange it at banks or foreign exchange bureaus in hotels or in the airport on arrival. However, most hotels and restaurants accept credit cards or debit cards, so only sometimes cash is necessary. Tipping servers in Seychelles is customary, even though it's not mandatory or expected. It's polite to leave a small tip for good service, usually 10 to 15% of the total bill. Seychelles time zones. The Seychelles is in the Indian Ocean and follows the Eastern African time zone, which is UTC+4. This is 1 hour ahead of the coordinated universal time. You should also note that the country doesn't observe daylight saving time, so the time remains the same throughout the year. Electricity and adapters, standard voltage in Seychelles is 240 volts and the frequency is 50 Hz. The most common type of plug used in the country is plug type G, which is the same as the British plug. Seychelles health. One of the great things about visiting the Seychelles is that despite it being a tropical destination and there are loads of mosquitoes, there's no malaria. There are a few vaccinations suggested for anyone vacationing in the Seychelles, but the lack of malaria is a big plus. Transport. The most popular way of getting around the islands is by car or motorbike, as the roads are well maintained and drivers generally abide by the road rules. There are also several local bus services that run throughout the day, which are an affordable way to get around. Taxis are in many towns and in Victoria as well. Getting between the islands is relatively easy with ferries, boat trips and even flights available. You can also book onto a cruise or charter a catamaran for travelling between the islands. Safety in the Seychelles. The Seychelles has an excellent reputation when it comes to being safe for travellers. The crime rate in the Seychelles is low and violent crimes are rare. As you travel to Seychelles, do take precautions as you would with any other destination by avoiding dark and isolated areas and not leaving valuables unattended. Cost and budgeting. Look, if you're looking for a vacation on a budget, the Seychelles is not an ideal destination. It is known for its high cost of living, with prices for goods and services higher than in other countries. Although the cost of living has risen dramatically over recent years, there are still ways to spend wisely to save money. All right. So there we are, the ultimate Seychelles travel guide. I'll be publishing more videos from my most recent trip to the Seychelles, so follow along, hit the notifications to find out more about this stunning destination.